What we'll do is we'll share the recording afterwards, and if people missed it, then they'll also get a copy as well. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, good morning. No worries, very well, thank you.
Good stuff, good stuff. Nice to see you. Right, who else have we got? Gareth. Hello, Gareth. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, very well indeed, thank you. Very well indeed. Thanks for joining us. Thanks
for organising. I've missed the last couple due to work commitments.
No, that's absolutely fine. I appreciate you're a busy man, aren't you?
I've got a 17-month-old kid in the house, mate. It's mental.
I think we all feel your pain there, don't we?
Oh my God, that was a resounding. I could see all the winters there.
See, I don't have children, so I don't have to experience it, but I have a lot of colleagues and friends who are experiencing it, and so I'm in there in sympathy completely.
Once the lockdown's finished, Daniel, we can share for a little bit if you want to experience.
No, I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Fred's just joined us. Hi, Fred. How are you doing? Okay, Fred's joining us now. Listen, thank you everyone for joining us so far. Over the next few minutes, we'll probably have a few more people kind of joining. Feel free to dip in and dip out of this session. It's going to be really, really interactive and slightly different from the other three that we've done so far. So this is the fourth in a series of roundtable events that we've been hosting virtually. And where this started was around business continuity. Obviously, COVID had a massive impact to the start of this, and it originally started with a white paper that Tracy Keeling published and wrote for us a while back, and we kind of said that actually once that had been published, it was almost out of date straight away because things are moving so quickly. So we decided to have a series of roundtable events just over 4 weeks to talk about some of the challenges that companies are facing right now and hear a few war stories. And we chose to have a guest panelist every single week. And so far that's worked really, really well. We've had people coming on talking about different tech strategies. We've had Gunnar Menzel, the CITO of Capgemini, talking about Technovision, the 4 key bits of technology that he sees are really, really important for businesses to embrace right now. Last week we had Tim Olson talking about automation, robotics process automation, and setting up a centre of excellence. And today we've got Simon Ellis joining us as our panelist, and it's going to be really interactive today. I'm going to sort of talk a little bit around what we've talked about briefly last week, but really this is going to be a focus on Simon talking about cloud strategy. And whereas in previous sessions we've left it to the presenter just to talk to us about their chosen field of expertise, today's going to be a little bit more interactive. I'll crack on and I'll recap from last week. Tracy unfortunately can't be with us today. She's got some family things that she's had to sort out today. So I won't introduce Tracy again, but we will talk a little bit about some of the things that she's discussed. We're going to recap on the current state of the government announcements. Last night we heard from the health secretary talking about the strategy around tracking and tracing, how that's going to impact your business. Obviously, if someone key within your business happens to have to self-isolate for 2 weeks, how's that going to affect your business? Are they set up now to work from home? Do they have access to everything they need? And how are they going to collaborate with other people in the team and in the business? And actually, a lot of the stuff that Tracy would have talked about around her people, processes, customer and technology leads really, really nicely into what Simon's going to be discussing today, which is all around cloud strategy. So this was Tracy's big thing around the inputs, assessing the current state of your business and your current picture. Jimmy's joining us now. Hi, Jimmy. I'm just going to add people in, and then I'm going to ask people to mute themselves in a minute so that Simon can crack on. So this was Tracy talking about all of the different things that you need to consider if you're going to basically, if you're going to talk about business continuity right now. But we're going to hand over now to Simon. Simon has worked in IT and tech for over 20 years. More recently, he led the European Cloud Transformation Project for Boots. And now Simon is an interim CTO, a tech strategist. He's Glaswegian. We won't hold that against him.
Thanks, Sam.
But he has a passion, a real passion for helping companies generally, and but specifically around cloud strategies. And over the next few weeks, Simon and I are going to be talking at a top line level around cloud strategy, and digging into some of those key topics in a bit more detail over the next few weeks. And today is just a bit of a taster session really for everyone involved, just to get a feel for what we're going to be talking about. And actually, we want this to be really interactive. So any questions that you want to ask, please just write them down, come in at the end. This is going to kind of hopefully give us a bit of a blueprint for how we're going to deliver these sessions over the next few weeks, and whether they're going to be part of our series of events every Thursday, or whether they might spin out into something totally separate. We don't know at the moment, but I'm going to hand over to Simon, and he's going to start talking about cloud strategy and what to consider. So Simon, over to you.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for pointing out I'm Glaswegian as well. So I will speak very slowly and clearly, and if I use any Glaswegian dialect, I apologise in advance. Before I start though, I have to say, has everybody seen Sam's bleeper reel on LinkedIn? If you haven't, go and have a look at what he posted yesterday. Honestly, it's uplifting. You'll have a good laugh, folks. So it's really good, and it's impressive, Sam, that you put all your bloopers on LinkedIn as well. But so listen, first and foremost, thank you for your time. As Sam kind of alluded to, this actually, I'd started speaking to Sam about this a few weeks ago, and it's actually a series of articles / roundtables that myself and Sam are going to be putting out over the next coming week. So it'll be interesting to see what you think, because the best way to kind of run these, because developing and implementing a cloud strategy, I'll be honest, we're not going to do that in half an hour. I'm not going to be able to go through all the topics in any sort of level of detail, but what we want to do today is give you a flavour of some of the areas and elements and things that you should be considering when looking at a cloud strategy. Because one of the things I've certainly realised, as Sam alluded to, I've just came off a very big cloud transformation program. It's actually still ongoing, but the phase that I was looking after is finished. And one of the things I realised, there was massive amounts of content out there about the technicalities of moving to the cloud and the different clouds. It doesn't matter whether it's Google or Amazon or Microsoft. There's all loads of certification, free training courses. But one of the things that seemed to be missing was, how the heck do you actually develop a strategy? How do you develop the business case from an organizational perspective to either start the journey or invest more in the journey? So the purpose of this initial intro, an overview, and then the rest of these sessions is actually to get in a bit deeper for those that are looking to develop an actual strategy. And I'll talk about what I mean by cloud strategy and cloud implementation approach, which are two slightly different things, but linked, and we'll be covering both of those in the series. What's kind of involved, the types of areas that you should be looking at, and just some war stories, to be honest, because one of the great things I love about these roundtables is I'm sure every single one of you has done something in the cloud. I mean, you're using the cloud now. We're all on Zoom, right? There's a great adage about, I can't remember who said it. I think it was somebody in Gartner said, when somebody asked him, when should you actually do a cloud strategy? And the answer is probably years ago. And COVID's a classic example of that. At the WBA, it had to roll out Office 365, Teams collaboration, massively just to support COVID. Luckily, there was a strategy behind it. It's just an accelerated rollout plan. So all of us have really got to think about cloud now, and not even just cloud first, but cloud native. But we'll touch on that. So Sam, can we move on a little bit? And hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So by the way, Gareth, I think you win the competition for best real background. You might have noticed this is slightly fake, but I think yours, just looking, yours is pretty cool, mate. Is that real? Yep, it's real. It moves. So some of the things to consider, right, about moving to the cloud and strategy. You know, why you moving to the cloud, right? And again, each of these, by the way, are going to be topics in their own right. Each one of these will be an individual session in its own right. Why move to the cloud? What does that mean? Do you actually need to do it? When you're considering moving to the cloud, you know, what's important to you? What's the driver? And to me, this all comes back, as well as the business case, comes back to the business strategy. So one of the key things and key tips around a cloud strategy is don't let it just be IT led, right? It needs to be across the organization. The sponsorship really needs to be across the organization. We'll touch on that in a little bit more later. What the different elements, you know, when we talk about moving to the cloud, you know, everything from, and I don't know your background, guys, on the call, you know, some of you might be security specialists, everything from security, service management, innovation, how you deal with innovation, culture of experimentation, again, not just within IT, but within the business. You know, who should you select as a partner? Who are your partners? Do you have the skills in-house? One of the things I've been speaking to Sam about a lot is the skill sets required. Doing a cloud transformation, it doesn't matter whether you're really a small, medium organization or a large organization. Moving to the cloud is probably one of the biggest transformations that you're going to do, right? It actually can have a significant impact on your day-to-day lives, both beneficial if done well, and even when you're doing it, but potentially quite negatively, especially if you get the maths wrong around the business case, because all these vendors will tell you, I'll move to the cloud, it's cheaper. It can be, but it can actually be a lot more expensive. And potentially when you're doing your transition across to the cloud, dual run costs and all these sort of things, the curve can actually be quite dramatic and quite a surprise. Equally, when you have moved to the cloud, depending on the partnership and who you've got running your systems and things like that, the cost of run can actually increase, not decrease. And some of the things you need to think about, again, and some of the elements when you move to cloud is things like your contracts. Some of the, you know, so when you look at your strategy, you need to look at your commercial strategy as well. You know, do you have the licenses to run things in the cloud? Do you move infrastructure as a service or platform as a service or SaaS? All these kind of things. Now, so creating a hybrid cloud strategy is actually, I think, quite important. And as you, and what I mean by that, that can be a mix of on-premise and cloud. It can also be a mix of clouds, right? So there's a lot of discussion out there. There are some organizations that are what I would say vendor locking in, you know, so they're actually locking into a particular cloud provider and a single cloud provider. One of the things, but we can talk about it today, but equally moving forward, there'll be a whole series about what's the pros and cons of that. You know, my tip personally is always have an exit plan. It's like any other commercial agreement that you go into. If things aren't going well, you should have an exit. So, you know, so you can back out or have multiple partners that you can actually deploy into. And I've seen real success in effectively organizations deploying, somebody send a joke, or we'll come back to that, Jonathan, like it. Deploying multi-cloud across, you know, literally there's some organization I've just been helping that is deployed on Azure. The actual application's on Azure, it's on G Cloud, and it's on AWS. It's spread across depending on the different services they do. So there's a lot you can do. One of the things we also want to touch on is setting up, you know, your program. What's involved in it? What's the types of skills that you need? What duration things to take? How would you set up a program depending on the size of the organization? So we'll be looking to touch on some of that. And again, war stories from you guys, if you've done it. I'm going to pick on some people, don't need to answer, but Daniel, if you've done some, or Gareth or Jonathan, you just happen to be right in front of me. If you've done any cloud work, what was involved with the skills. So setting up your program with the right partner with the right skills, and touching that on is how do you develop the skills? How do you set up either a cloud center of excellence or a community of practice around this? Because it's really transformational. It really is a different set of skills for a lot of people. And that kind of surprises and catches a lot of people out. So you've got to be kind of wary of some of that. And lastly, one of the things on here, things to consider is, when moving to the cloud, it's the evolution of, a lot of people talk about cloud first approach. Is that even relevant? Is it now cloud native? Are people really jumped ahead to move to cloud native? And I think there's different people on that, different stages of the journey, because particularly if you've got a hybrid strategy, right? A lot of people, so I've worked with customers, for example, and the strategies, I just want to get out my data centers because it's a cost driver play, right? And then but the problem is you become potentially blinkered with, I've got to get everything out my data center. And that drives a certain implementation approach, it drives a certain model, and actually the right answer might be a hybrid, stay in a bit of a data center or a different data center, move into the cloud. The skill sets that are required and how you set up your programs can be quite intricate, because you might still need your traditional on-prem infrastructure support capabilities, plus you've now got these set of skills to support the cloud. So, Sam, if we can just move on a little bit. Oh, I didn't even realize this had a build on it. There you go. I'm learning as you go. So, as I said, moving to the cloud. So we're just going to touch on these a little bit more. Business strategy has to be at the absolute core of this, and the support and sponsorship of the organization. I can't stress this enough. Why is it important? Because if you've worked in IT for a while, if IT comes up with its own big program and then tries to force it on the business, you end up with a clash. Now, so one of the key things we want to really explore in this is looking at the long-term plan horizon and the business strategy of organization, then looking at the midterm and bringing in sort of strategic plans that you have within IT. What is your data center approach? What is your development approach? Security, what is procurement, all these various things. All those should really be in the mix when you actually start to look at your cloud strategy, making sure that all the various sponsorship the sponsorship is actually across the whole of the organization. So involve the business in getting that set up, involve operations, involve finance, legal, sourcing, HR, particularly if it's a reasonably sized estate that you have and your skills are going to transform, making sure that you've got HR on board, change management and engagement. Because one of the things about moving to the cloud, and Sam mentioned it earlier, a lot of people just focus on back-end infrastructure. They think about compute, they think about storage, they think about network and infrastructure, and that's quite common. And quite often you see a cloud implementation as somebody describes it, it's creating a new virtual data center in the cloud and then moving things in it. But cloud's more than that. Cloud, is if you think about it, Office 365, the cloud enablement of your organization around collaboration and ways of working and things like that. There is so even though you could be transparent on, say, moving your infrastructure or transforming your infrastructure at the back end, and by the way, a very successful cloud infrastructure program, a transformation program, was when the business, one CEO says, is the best thing you can do for me is I don't even know this program's happened. You move my systems, you modernize my systems, I don't know. It just business runs. And he was absolutely right. You want zero kind of impact for them. Obviously you need the business engaged to UAT and things like that. Where you do get, you do need to think about business change in particular is when you do, things like rolling out collaboration Teams, things like Teams as an example, or Google eSuite, because they really change the ways of working. And just think about COVID, going back to the slides earlier that Sam put out, if we didn't have those capabilities, working from home would be a much, much different beast, and the transformation that some of these things can have. Again, a client, the job I just finished with, the amount of email drop absolutely drops down if you bring in collaboration, but you've then got a whole change element of how, and it's a duty of care on some of this as well, by the way, when people are working from home, how do you make sure they're engaged, et cetera, et cetera. So you really need to make sure that the cloud strategy is joined up, it's got sponsorship, and it's a concise point of the view of the cloud across the whole of the enterprise. Right, but and the next session that we have will really drive into that in a lot more detail. Sam, business case. I love this one, right? Business cases around some of this stuff. J.K. Rowling could write some very interesting business cases, probably than some I've seen. Writing a good, solid business case with an understanding of the as-is costs as much as the to-be costs, I think is critical, because there are cost implications, right? Some very, very fundamental cost implications of moving to the cloud. A simple one might just be moving from a CapEx view to an OpEx. Moving to the clouds, you're not buying tin, you're not capitalizing it, you're not depreciating it. How you financially manage it is very different. You're moving to cloud, it's all consumption based on some sort of metrics, it's more operational. So some organizations really, really struggle with that, because they could be capital heavy and they're institutionalized in terms of what they do. So how you develop that case, is really important with finance. That's one. Really understanding the as-is estate. Why is that important? Because there could be a lot of hidden costs in there. So when you look at developing the business case, one of the things, or one of the tips, and again, we'll go into a more detailed approach to this in the session we focus on business key, is how do you analyze your estate and understand the various applications. For example, let's pick on applications, the various applications, and how do you categorize them? So some of these might be lift and shift, some of these might be modernize, some of these might be demise, some of those might be other programs of work that are going to change the estate into a SaaS model that you deploy. It's really important to bring all that together, because if you're really going to do a cloud native, or you're going to get out your data set, depending on your use case, you really need to take a holistic view of all these and account for them, even down into things like people. The people skills. Do you need to hire new people? Do you need to partner? Because one of the things in the tail is, if for example you want to get out your data centers, let's just pick one, and that's a use case. If you've got things that can move to the cloud, either as infrastructure or as platform as a service or modernized, that's great. But what if you've got a mainframe that's running your data center? What do you do about that? And if your business case is predicated on shutting data centers in order to get cost savings, but you've got things in there that you just can't do it with, and you've missed it, your whole business case falls apart. That's where I'm coming from. So one of the things I want to explore in that session is a methodology and approach. And again, this would be a conversation. It's just an example of an approach to try and address that, to gather the data so that the business case is informed appropriately. And by the way, whether a business case even stacks up, because the sting in the tail on these things is people get caught out. Some anecdotal ones, for example, it's great about experimentation. We talk about that a little bit. But if you start giving your developers sandpits, great, they can throw data in and out. I know one client that didn't know that they were spending millions of pounds on sandpit environments. Millions of pounds, because Cosmos DB was the example. Chucking data in and out, fantastic. it's all IO-based metrics, and every time you throw data in and out, cost was going up. So you've got to think about these types of elements. Sam, we move on. I'm trying to see if there's some nods and things we go along. And by the way, guys, if you've got questions, feel free to ping them up, or we can have a chat the data. So, there is a lot to consider. There is a lot of dimensions. So one of the things we want to go through is those dimensions. And I mentioned some of them earlier. So you've got to really think about when your cloud strategy and when you move that to implementation, everything like, it's not just a fact of moving something from A to B or developing something new. Related to that is going to be things like security and identity management. So moving to the cloud actually creates some new challenges. So a massive amount of opportunity, but some new challenges. Looking at PaaS services and some of these types of things, does it offer the security if you got personal identifiable information, if you've got personal health information, depending on the sector you are? What's GDPR, all these kind of things? Where are you storing the data? Things about your whole service model, your support model will potentially need to be evolved, especially if you're in a hybrid. How do you support these things? How do you manage and govern the use of the cloud environments? One of the things, again, you go on Amazon, you go on Google, what do they say? It's easy. You can provision something in seconds. You can spin it up. You can do, absolutely you can. But you need to think about then how you manage that. Yeah. How you tag it, looking at billing, subscriptions, all those sort of things. The people skills, that you got to look at. So, and there is a lot of different dimensions. So one of the things that I want to go through with you all is, here's a model. Here's a different dimensions and different things that you could consider. And some of them might be really important to some of you. Some of it might not be, depending on the size and shape of the organization and where you are on a maturity curve. You might go, got that covered, that's fine. What I've tended to find is there'll be some in there you thought, oh, I've not thought about that. And that potentially has got a sting in the tail. Sam? Next one.
We've got changing the culture.
Oh, there it is. Sorry, it's cunningly hidden under the video screen. Let me just move this for a second. Choice of Zoom. Changing the culture. This is an interesting one, because this again is you've got to manage your stakeholders appropriately. You sell a vision of a cloud, you sell a vision of agility and speed and things like that. And suddenly, you've got an organization that says, fantastic, I'll have a large data mart tomorrow, please. I'm going to throw all the data that I've got in the organization into it. And, I'm going to be analyzing the heck out of it. And, so the whole thing about how you manage culture and change and adoption, you need to lean into. I guess this is one of the top tip today is like lean into it at the beginning. And again, this is why when you talk about the strategy, it is massively important to have engaged with the business right up front and set expectations and work with whoever the stakeholders are in your organization about the culture around this, because it is transformative. It really can be transformative. The speeds that you can deliver transformation, truly can be phenomenal. You can be spinning things up in minutes to days rather than days to weeks, depending on the organization that you come from. If you're brownfield or legacy, and you've worked in that space, you guys will have felt the pain of trying to do any type of change. If you're greenfield fintech or something, it might be, well, I can spin this thing up. But you've got to think about the culture and how people, everything down from how you engage with execs, what their expectations are in terms of delivering their business strategy, the way of dealing with identity, security, service management, down into the individuals, the whole DevOps, the CI/CD, how the skills, the HR, the people, how you engage, how you build teams. There are new opportunities potentially by using the cloud about, the culture of getting local, regional, global teams to work together in ways that weren't either easy or possible in the past. So one of the things we definitely will be doing is drilling into the cultural aspects and change. And there's some, again, war stories and tips and things about how we can do that. And you will all have that as well if you've been in some part of that cloud journey. Finding the right partner, you know, and what does that mean? That could be internal partners, it could be external partners. But one of the key things, if you're on this journey, depending on your maturity and how much goes, is, you know, is making sure you've got the right partner on the journey with you. And by that, I mean both, I do mean within the business. So you've got true partnership within your organization. Again, that we'll go through that in more detail depending on the size and complexity of your organization. The technology partner, one or more, you know, who are you working with? You know, one of the things, depending again on the size of organization, you might need a systems integrator. Who is the systems integrator? Because some of these cloud vendors have no consulting capability whatsoever. If you go to Google, they don't have a consulting arm, right? That might not be important because you have a consulting partner or a specialist who already does that, or you have in-house skills that are really good at it. Whereas Microsoft does. You know, Microsoft has a consulting arm that provides, let's call it a systems integrator kind of wrap around, you know, programs and capabilities. Comes at a price, but comes with a level of support. You know, and there's the change part of that in terms of strategy. So again, you know, you might have a change management partner, but you might then need to look at how you do your run and your whole DevOps run ops type of view. What's your strategy around that? So the partnership and the business architecture about how you design your operation, your organization through transition and then post transition. I think the are really important, and there might be different partners as you go along that journey. So what I found really useful is having a discussion around that and trying to share again some stories, some war stories and experiences around it, because one size does not fit all in this, and it's really important to get the right partnerships in place in order to make these a success. And Sam, so I actually hate the expression COE. I've created it, and then I'm going to say I hate it. Thanks, Daniel.
Daniel's got thumbs up there.
Okay, so so let's call it, you know, center of expertise. For one, I don't like center of excellence, right? So the center of expertise or community of practice is another expression for it. I will modify these slides. Myself and Sam were talking about this earlier on, and I knew it would get a reaction. Building skills. I guess it was coming to, you know, so one of the things you really want to do, and again, this is from experience, is if you can create some sort of central, and it doesn't need to be physically central, that's the key thing, is create some sort of community of practice, center of expertise, or something that allows you to build out across the organization. Again, depending on the size and complexity you've got, but especially when it's new, and it's building that community, getting it to build the skills, self-reinforcing, self-learning. But what's also really important when you move to the cloud is having some elements that really are centralized. You know, and again, you could have a central, you know, global group, and then maybe devolve teams within that work into the center. But things like managing the cloud, you know, how do you deal with provisioning of environments? How do you know? Do you self-provisioning? How do you do that? How do you manage billing and all those kind of things? There are certain things that, from a cloud perspective, you would look to want to try and bring together, because if you don't, what you will end up with is, to be honest, potentially a bit of a car crash. One of the things you definitely will end up with is costs all over your organization that you don't know is happening. And I've seen that in so many places. And you end up a cloud journey, and then suddenly somebody, particularly the CFO, will knock on your door going, whoa, stop. Where are all these bills coming from? Where's the control on it? So it's not about control per se, but some things around governance and how you build that skill set, that community of practice or of expertise, you know, and that's where, you know, people like Sam come in. These are Sam can help in these kind of areas. So
can I just
go for it?
Can I just ask a question around that then?
Yeah, of course.
because I find this bit probably one of the biggest challenges, and it's around centralization. So what a lot of companies tend to do is, you're right, they centralize and they control the environment and the provisioning of the environment. However, like, different subject matter expertise require different requirements. I'll just give you an example. So we build speech transcription engines, and so we need to be able to like spin up infrastructure, like train models, and then do transcription and then power it all down relatively quickly.
Yep.
What we find is that isn't aligned with a centralized team's ways of working.
Yeah.
And not only that as well, it's not attractive for a centralized team to work like that. Really, it should work as a bit of a hub and spoke, where the responsibilities should be with like that.
I totally agree, Jimmy. There's absolutely a brilliant point, mate. There are different models. So where I've seen some levels of centralization, for example, would be so centrally they would control the build templates, right? But to your point, the devolved teams could spin up, but as long as they spin up one of the improved templates, and the templates, if it's a pre-built ARM template, it's got all the proper tagging, it's got all that. Basically, whoever's within your team, for example, would come along, go to the CLI and say, right, I want one of these. These are the parameters I put in. Bam, it's done. So the centralization, to your point, is not a command and control thing, because the danger in that is you end up with all you end up is a new infrastructure management team.
Yeah. And
you then build in all the latency, and so you'll have a front door process. It needs to go through assessment. Absolutely, you shouldn't be there. But what you ideally want to do, and again, all of these, whether it's G Cloud or Amazon or Azure, is you want to get the policies, the blueprints, the standardization, the security, and everything pre-built into the templates, and then you just provision what you need as you go through. And I've seen people that they literally will have a cloud management layer, and a developer will just go in and go, I want one of those, bam, and it's all done. Yeah. The trick then is to make sure that the provisioning is, so if you're the team leader, Jimmy, is there a step in there that says you just need to go, tick, I'm happy for the cost? That it's that kind of thing you just need to be careful of.
Yeah, so I quite like, what you want is, you want license to operate, but you want someone to tap you on the shoulder if you're doing something that's going to cost like an absolute fortune. You realise that this has been running for X amount of time, and you go, oh shit.
And honestly, the worst case of that I've seen, and it was nobody's fault. The worst case of that is I saw somebody burn through £500,000 in a month.
Right.
$500,000, well, dollars it was, about $500,000 in a month. And they were doing the right thing. They spun up an environment, and they were just chucking her massive data sets at something, right? Massive. But nobody had clocked on the implication. So it's, for me with these things, it's finding the right balance. Some models suit organizations. And by the way, some organizations are going to take a long time to evolve. So if you're in a smaller startup, SME type organization, there'll be a model, even if you're you could be regional or global. If you're in a multi-billion pound global organization with to be honest, different layers of financial controls and regulation and governance and things like that, that's hard for them to mentally, and that's what I mean about the changing the culture and going back to the cloud strategies. You need to go back to and say, like, hey, finance, you might need to be in a position where you're going to have to trust some people, or there's some devolved budget spent here, right? And that means the financial and budgeting process will need to change. It says every division has X amount of money to spend on whatever cloud provisioning they want to use. And that's both from a strategy, then from a cultural and a budgeting perspective. But to your point then, Jimmy, it's spot on. What you can do is, you might be the team leader and say, right, I've got £1 million at the beginning of the year. I'll just decide how I want to spend that. And as you say, I like it, the virtual tap on the shoulder. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So there's no one size fits all. So but literally we have a whole session on that type of things and some models, and some of the models that we'll show around that are quite interesting, you know, in terms of how people have structured it, how people have the types of skills that are within it, the pros and cons. Let's be honest, right? It's the pros and cons of it. Because one of the real power of cloud is you bring agility. You know, yeah. But what's the expression? I can't remember. With great power comes great responsibility. I don't know. I'm thinking it's cartoon. I'm sure it was some great history leader. There you go. Yeah, there you go. But you know, that's kind of true. It's true of all things in life, I guess, isn't it? But it's there as well. So I think there is some elements. So just to sort of finish off on that point, there are some elements that I think centralization is really good. Standardization of templates and governance, and you know, the enterprise architecture type of thing, making sure standards, patterns, and approaches are adopted. But to your point, the ability to spin up and things, I agree, should be devolved. Let people get on and do their job, not constrain them. But the controls need to be thought about.
It's a bit like managing your kids and how they download apps and then buy stuff on, really. This is what it sounds like to me.
Is that the virtual tap on the shoulder there, sir?
Absolutely. Atul made a really good point over on the chat there, and he had a bit of a war story around a cloud migration piece. I don't know if Atul, if you want to unmute yourself and come in on that.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody saw my chat there. So yeah, I got a great experience that a few years ago. I was running innovation and architecture for a major water company, and it was an interesting episode about collaboration. So if you take, and what I'll do, I'll go for the story, and it'll probably bring out some of the points that people raised on the call, and you can understand the politics behind it. So the first thing was the first dilemma we were facing was that who owns the cloud strategy? Is it the operations department or is it the IT department? Because in you know, even a few years, even now, IT department can also be the ones who just fix the laptops and give you the latest Windows upgrade, and the operations people are the ones who service the actual network, who have the responsibility of thinking about the 5-year plan. So that was the first thing. Is it OPEX issue? Sorry, is it an operations issue or is it an IT issue?
Yeah.
And then there was this whole thing about, which I keep seeing time and time again on the internet, about, you know, everybody with COVID-19 is accelerating their investment into cloud technologies. That's absolutely right. It's what people should be doing. But there's a big caveat there, is that the actual integration of the cloud architecture into the live environment is not just a plug and play. It's correct. Basically, you have many edge devices out there. You have many challenges that people, I think, mentioned the departments. I mean, finance teams were always used to attributing CapEx costs, getting, I don't know, tax back or whatever from those types of spend. Suddenly they were put into OPEX or TOTEX, and it was very hard to justify certain types of spend because they were basically bucketed into buying, I don't know, pieces of software and things like that. So we found some real challenge. The other challenge was this about collaboration. So we had the situation where, yeah, clearly everybody has had to use Windows, you know, PowerPoint and all those things, but trying to get them to use even Teams. You know, I think the great thing about COVID-19 is suddenly driving people to use these things like Teams and trying to build up new relations in that way. But up until very recently, we were buying, I don't know, 35 apps on the Office 365 that we were buying as part of a contract with Microsoft. But people were only using 2 or 3 of them. It was very hard to get the implementation in place.
Yep.
And then you had many things. Then they're also about which cloud, or do you need more than one cloud? You may have Azure for your Office environment, okay, where people are using that for Office 365, but then using AWS for your operation environment. It was creating a lot of confusion. There's some real challenges there. And I think the big thing I remember was that the cost. When we looked at the brochure, as it were, it was 3 million investment over 2 years. It went to over 11 million investment over 4 years because a lot of the edge devices couldn't work. And some of the obvious things, like we had a huge operations network in some of the key areas where we needed to have high-speed capability. It just wasn't there. So we couldn't even use half the apps that we needed to use. So you imagine, we're talking about 5G. Today's world is still being rolled out to metropolitan areas. You've got, if you look at the supply chain, you've got a lot of factories that are looking to use automation to reduce on human effort. But all of those entities are in areas where there is very limited coverage. So
I think that's another excellent point, by the way, Atul. The acceleration, I think you make a brilliant point. A couple of things, acceleration around that. Yeah, it's driven use, but think about things in an environment. So Teams, video calling suddenly becomes available. Right now, at home, bizarrely, pushing things at home has helped organizations out some of this. So your point is necessity becomes the mother of all invention. People start using it. So that's great. See, when people start going back into the office, what's going to happen? They all want to still use video conferencing, and the wireless access points won't be able to handle the bandwidth.
Yeah.
So suddenly, so to your point about edge devices and IoT, you're going to start to see that kind of thing actually in the office environment, because the people's expectations now, potentially, as you know, we're using Zoom just now. It's instant on. I've got video conferencing. I'm sharing this. I've got voice. People will start to operate that way now. Yes, this will take a bit of time as the offices maybe fill back up, but you're going to have infrastructure issues. You're going to have technical debt. I'll describe it generically as technical debt. Things that in the network, things that, your point about applications, things like integration. The journey to the cloud is not a straightforward lift and shift everything across in your back. It's not. To your point, there are lots of, and this is what I mean about the elements. Integration is definitely an element. Technical debt is really important. That assessment I talked about when you're building the business case, and to your point there, is you need to make sure you've done enough due diligence to understand where the skeletons in the closet are and the as much of the hidden costs. You're not going to be able to do everything, because otherwise you end up doing the project.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an interesting story. If I look back on it, is that basically we had a CIO who, I was reporting to the CIO, so who had literally just joined the company about 6 months before. The average tenure for a CIO summit level was about 3 or 4 years. So you've also got this thing, you come in, you're trying to make a difference, but you also know that the after effects of what you're trying to do may be passed over to the new guy. Yeah. So there's a lot of politics there as well. And I even remember the CIO himself. He was from the old school. He was somebody who liked to see, when he goes into his large desk, 200 people sitting in front of him. Okay. Because that was the management at the time. You want to see your team visible there. But the dilemma there was clearly you're trying to also promote this new way of working. And there's a huge political element here. If the senior managers are not proactively driving this and demonstrating usage of this, then it will never filter through the wider organization. And what I observe now is fascinating with COVID-19, where senior managers are now forced to address remote working in a serious way. And you can see the baby steps we're in. We're now, they're doing like virtual coffee mornings. And my wife tells me, she works for another large company, how they're trying to engage their teams using this remote way of working. And you can tell we're still at very nursery steps. And one thing, Sam, I quite applaud, I've been to a few of these now. I think you've taken some great leaps in engaging wider audiences. I mean, there's many things I'm seeing here that I've not seen in teams of organizations who are still struggling with, how do I engage my team in this remote fashion? And I think I think there needs to be a change from the old way of working to the new way of work. And there's a lot of innovation and ideas that still need to be thrown out there. Absolutely. There's I can see, Simon, you've got this lovely background behind you, which is great.
Yeah, unlike Gareth, this isn't real.
Yes, but these things are great. These are the first steps to new innovation. There's a whole opportunity here about how we can really make the cloud engaging, how we can get senior managers to feel confident that they can get their teams working remotely with a complete confidence that they can still build up strong relationships with them. I think this is the view for the next 6 to 8 months that people need to jump onto. I also like the way, Sam, you managed to get in complete strangers into a conversation, which I know I'm having calls with people out in the USA, and it's true. I mean, a lot of people, I apologize myself, I've not used the video. A lot of people are even used to having the video up, you know. So there's so many intricacies that still need to be overcome to really get the cloud investment to be at its potential. You know,
that's all. I think there must be room in the government for you to be in the cabinet as I don't know.
Gareth's already voting for him. Atul for Prime Minister, according to the chat.
Secretary of State for Cloud.
Oh no, no! I don't want to be indicate anything that Dominic Cummings is doing. So no.
I like Jonathan kind of got the vibe right at the beginning. You know, I love the joke. What's initiated your digital transformation strategy? The CEO, CIO, or COVID-19? I think that just speaks to exactly what you're saying.
I tell you what, Simon, you know, the amount of CIOs that I've spoken to in the last 3 months, and everybody has the same story of, I've been trying to get the company to embrace cloud. I've been trying to get the company to have, you know, get Microsoft Teams and get everybody using it. And all of a sudden, you know, everyone's just doing it like overnight. And
I got a real war story from, just to share for a couple of seconds with you, that one of my former clients had basically was just, I mean, distributed in loads of countries, central CIO, but IT directors effectively in every country, managing their own thing, and, you know, workers' councils, all those kind of things. We want to roll out Office 365. Okay, that's going to take 6 months here, this month here, there. DR kicked in effectively, or business continuity plan kicked in once we knew lockdown was going to happen. You've never seen product roll out so quickly.
Yeah.
And the reality is, people didn't need to be blocking it as much as they should have been. You know, and it goes back to the people and the change aspects of it, you know, and let's be honest, I think, Atul, you mentioned the politics of it. You know, there are power politics at different levels of different organizations and different complexities, and some of it is just people, you know, not being nasty, it's just the human nature. It's just, it's my domain, I am going to protect it, I will make the decision. As soon as you get a compelling event, you know, and Atul mentioned this as well, there has been nothing in our lifetime, anything like COVID or a pandemic like this, that has actually created a compelling event to do something. The danger now, right, and this is another one of the topics that we would cover in the series, is how do you sweep up the mess that's been created by this? Because everybody's now rushed in to do stuff because they've had to, and, you know, and for all the right reasons. And they will continue on that journey, but you've already now created probably an immense amount of technical debt in a new environment rather than the old environment that potentially needs to sweep up. And I talk about things like, how do you deal with identity that may, or security that might have been relaxed slightly to get things rolled out. So, you know, there are a couple of examples, and they're really important. So Sam, just on the last slide, because I know we've only got a couple of minutes. So the purpose of this, folks, was, you know, in the series, right? So today was literally just a taster. And I, by the way, I love this round table conversation a bit. Let's do more of this, right? Yeah. It's not about me speaking to you. I'm a chap that's done some stuff. So you've all got different experiences. You all got different requirements. But in the series we want to do is, we really want to be able to help you develop your own cloud strategy and what that actually means. Understanding, Atul, to your point, the different elements required to shape that strategy and the business case. The two are fundamentally linked. How to engage with the business and get that done. You know, understand really, from a technical and a cultural perspective and a business case, financial, all the various things, what does it mean to have a cloud first or cloud native mentality? Because again, that is a cultural change, and different tips and techniques to be able to do that. And how to be able to develop your people and select the right partners to deliver on that strategy. Because I've seen opposite cases where it's true, which you have a fantastic strategy, but it's just not deliverable, right? And I've run, my background, I've run enterprise architecture teams, and enterprise architects are accused of being in ivory towers. And I've always said to my teams is, there's no point delivering a strategy that cannot be delivered. You need to have something that is actually actionable, deliverable, and has the outcome that meets the business need. So making sure you've got the right people and skills and things around that is really important. So listen, I hope this has been kind of useful, bit of a chat, bit of an introduction. As I said, Sam and I want to run a whole series of these in more detail, basically go down each of these in vertical. Appreciate your feedback, whether you think you'd be interested in those series, and if there's topics in here that are missing. Yeah. So I won't be always doing the speaking, by the way. We'll be having other people in, as Sam and I mentioned, we want a bit more of a round table. So if there's a particular topic that somebody wants to really get stuck into and wants to have, a little bit more of a face-to-face chat, just get in touch with us. Because this is all about sharing experiences. Sam made me think last night when he did the post, because it was one hashtag we're in it together. And I do genuinely believe that. We've got a compelling event, there's business continuity, we've got this, but actually as a community, we're in this together. And for me, one of the things I thought I could share is, look, there's loads on the tech, but actually how you get the strategy and the change and how you get these programs set up and things, that's a bit of stuff I can try and impart and share some knowledge and have conversations with you all to try and help.
I think what will be really interesting is along the way, we actually get different leaders in particular areas to come in and actually have their point of view and share what their kind of domain is, whether it be from a data science point of view. Jimmy's very much into data science, text analytics. He has a certain requirement for how he stores his data, and that'll be really, really different to another part of the business. So it'd be really good over the next few weeks to get different people on the round table to ask some questions specifically about their own domain and how that affects the overall business strategy. And there was a quick question from Alpesh. He was asking about the differentiating between big cloud providers like AWS and Azure and co-location providers, and what your view on that was, Simon. I guess we've talked quite a lot about big organizations, big data, but do you want to sort of opinion on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they all have their place. Absolutely all have their place. And I think co-locates MSPs and those types of cloud, or listen, at the end of the day, a cloud is you're renting compute, storage, network, and a set of services. That's effectively what you're doing. They all have their place. I think it depends when you're looking at your strategy, what is the right size and what is your need? So if you go back to the business strategy and you understand the capabilities that your IT organization needs to deliver in order to deliver that strategy, I think I think we talked a little bit earlier about multi-cloud and all those kind of things. The small medium cloud providers have niches and have things that others don't have. It doesn't always need to be about the big shiny thing with the big marketing budget. They definitely have their place. What you've just got to think about is same things, actually. You've got to think about, do you put all your eggs in a basket? Do you have an exit strategy? Some of these smaller, some of them you have to use. So if you do certain things for the NHS, you're actually going to be constrained to either one or two of the big boys, or actually specific cloud providers, infrastructure cloud providers as well. So depending on the domain and the problem, actually some of the big boys are not the right answer because of the connectivity you might need to have, for example, into the NHS backbone. Some things I've had to do in the past is you have to put your services here rather than here. What I would say is it just comes back to the same points. You need to just think about your strategy, from a global perspective, business perspective, what you're trying to do from your IT perspective, your capabilities you're trying to deliver and the services that you try to deliver, and then map them to some of those players. And some of the series will talk about that in a lot more detail, and that might be quite useful about some of the frameworks and approaches you could actually do to take it. And end of the day, you end up with a matrix, and you make your decisions. But the key is to make your decision in an educated, informed way, rather than I can't remember who mentioned it, whether it was Jimmy or Atul earlier on, or Sam, the marketecture, the great marketing machines that these guys all have. So yeah, but Alpesh, sorry, it was a short answer. I know you've had to leave, but we can pick up afterwards as well.
Thanks for that, Simon. Thanks for that, Alpesh. Has anybody else got any questions? Gareth, Jonathan. Jonathan, I think you'd like to ask something.
Yeah. One of the key challenges can be getting the sequencing right. Yeah. So, looking at some of the things you've talked about there, Simon, building the centre of excellence, there's people issues, but if you kind of look at it from a business process perspective and how you're enabling the business, a lot of people are jumping on 365, for example, and saying, let's just bash this out.
Yep.
Because it solves the problem today. But unless you've got fairly optimized business process and tools supporting that, you can get into an awful governance issue where people start using the 365 tools to execute their business instead. So one of the things I learned from a significant project where we went cloud native on business applications, business systems, and end user services.
Yeah,
was nail the business systems first, get those really tuned up before you enable people to create their own effectively business systems with some of these.
It's an excellent point, Jonathan. I've seen it done different ways. I've seen it done, to your point, what you do is you sort your business systems out and then you roll out. I've actually seen the need the other way, which is you roll out teams, some like teams, and even in parallel. So you get both of them going in parallel, and you're enabling. One of the interesting things in it is to your point, when you look at the service management piece, is making sure your end user compute. So if I just call it EU teams, because rolling out teams is simple, but you've got to then think, to your point, what's been used within it. And team, if it's used teams, if I pick on teams, behind that is OneDrive and the SharePoint. Then you've got the devices that you're actually going to get your colleagues using. So do you have the right spec of devices? Because these things need a little bit more power than potentially they were used to. So you've got to look at it holistically when you're putting these things together. And what I've certainly found is, to your point, is if you give some of these tools to the business, they will absolutely. And by the way, remember, as part of the vision you potentially have sold, is we've got this great new thing and it's a cloud, and we've got this great new thing and it's called Teams, and it's got all these great functionality. People are people. They go, oh, actually, I could solve that problem with this, and suddenly they've got. I know where they've created new communities and such like, and I know they've started to potentially use store operating procedures and start to look at levels of automation and flow and things like that. You end up with shadow IT. Just call it that. It's probably not the right phrase, but the business itself, it's an ongoing tit for tat kind of war. IT always potentially wants control, business wants control, IT wants control. It's about enablement, and then with the right governance. And I don't think anybody has the silver bullet for it yet, because there's a balance. Because what you want to do is you want to get it out and you want to give agility and freedom and things like that. But with that comes, those challenges, the power and responsibility. The opposite is you lock things down so much you actually lose the benefit of the products and the tools. I've seen that done. You know, it's a very healthy balance of how you do it.
Part of the solution to that well-governed state is building the roadmap with the right sequencing. Correct. So I think maybe we could touch on that as we go through your agenda.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the points, I've not shown you the full schedule, but one of the points we do talk about is roadmaps. You know, and the prioritization and scheduling of activities. So I'll take that as a note, and we'll definitely drill into that in one of those sessions.
Great, thanks.
Sweet, thank you. Good joke as well, by the way.
I can't take credit for it.
Well, I've never seen it before. I liked it though. Sam, you're on mute, mate.
How many times have we seen that? Sam, you're on mute. I could add that to my blooper reel. Thanks for that, Jonathan. Really appreciate it. Gareth, do you want to finish off with a question? I know you've been sort of chomping at the bit, I think, a little bit there.
I'm quite excited, really. I mean, some of the bits and bobs, Simon, you were mentioning there. I mean, I can relate to them all, and it's, you know, there's never been a time now, and I work at the exec level, and now I'm spending a lot of time with CEOs that have got feelings. They've got a feeling in their business that something's not quite right, and it comes down to, Jonathan, what you just mentioned there, the people. I've got a feeling that sales is shit, which is my area. Okay, let's go and investigate. Let's get under the bonnet. Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. CEO, why are you bringing those guys back when you could use that money for da-da-da-da? And there's so many crazy ideas for cloud, and I think it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder at the moment, that there is no barriers. There's no blockages here. It's like, well, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? Have we got the people? Although I am a massive fan of technology and adoption and growth, I've got to listen to CEOs at the moment. I want X, Y, and Z on my bottom line, guys. How are we going to do it? Business case. Have we got the people? Have we got the capacity? Screw you. Sorry, you're going to hate this, but screw the technology part.
No, you're right.
We've got to spend 3 months really interrogating your business. And what comes out of that is, I forget who mentioned it, might have been Atoll. So many problems that are billing, supply chain. They're not actually what IT or marketing actually think they need. And I just think it's brilliant. And I do get quite passionate and overzealous, but that's just me. It's all got to. It doesn't have to settle down. This, I don't think. It has to just keep evolving and keep testing, measuring, learning. And you know, this is a great little group here, great little forum, Sam. I can't thank you enough for sort of letting me come in. And I think we're moving forward. I think that from a top line perspective, which is where I am now, and just spending years in the channel, working with VARs and system integrators. I love speaking with execs now and going, "What's your problem, mate? What do you want?" Well, and that's where you see the whites of the eyes, and we've sort of stakeholder management wise. It cuts out a lot of the noise. Yeah. Business owner wants to add multi-million. How are we going to do it? Yeah. Everyone's just drop your frigging egos and let's get in a room and get a sprint going. And, you know, I've been doing this properly now with my company for probably a year and a bit. And it's frigging brilliant. It's brilliant seeing the veils lifted and seeing CEOs and CFOs go, fucking hell, why didn't we just do this a bit sooner? Why didn't we just get this plan of attack or options? It doesn't have to be one business case.
Correct.
Sorry, I'm waffling a lot now. I'm really
no. Listen, it's spot on, mate.
Do you think that for the last sort of 10 years since the last recession, that companies have just got a little bit lazy?
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like, crap. Yeah, we've had to, you know, lift the kimono and be a little bit more honest and go, actually, yeah, we need to properly look at our business strategy and change. Yeah. And actually, for a lot of companies, I think COVID's done them a favor in a way.
Yeah, there's so much money, and I operate in a niche space, but there's so much money lying around businesses. Seriously, it's crazy the amount of wastage, you know. And it's like, it's quite easy to go and invest in £250,000, £500,000 project, Simon, like something you could look at. And I'm like, yes, it is. And they just, a lot of the businesses, I've got lazy, Sam, I agree, but I think now they're truly understanding that change isn't overnight. They've got to understand it in so much depth. And I did make a note to Jimmy about the numbers don't lie. You know, Gareth is going to add 5 million quid to our X, Y, and Z function. Call. What's that department doing over there first? Because I'm a bit scared. But yeah, I think a lot of people are waking up, not fully woken yet.
I think, Simon, your point actually, which I never even really considered, was the when people say, you know, how do you launch or should you launch a cloud? Well, surely we're all in the cloud now anyway. But actually, you're right. The point you made was the mess. Everyone's jumped in feet first, and it's that technical debt that they've built up and how they're going to manage that. So that's quite an interesting. That's a really interesting topic. It's an opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a sting in the tail. Things like technical debt, you know, you can define that in different ways, but it's always a thing that stops a business being agile, right? Because it builds up through time, and it's like a scar tissue. It just builds up and eventually causes an issue. There's such a unique time to be able to try and do some things right, you know, to Gareth's kind of point, and set things up right. But the risk will be that a lot of people have rushed in for all the right reasons, right? Necessary. And what they do is they just build up scar tissue again, and what that gradually will do will reduce their agility. And what it will also do is increase the costs. The TCO model will be wrong because they might have made tactical decisions, uninformed tactical decisions that then drive the TCO up, and there's some big sting in the tails there if you're not careful. Especially if you've done infrastructure as a service and you've just moved from there to there, that is not a cost-saving exercise. That the only way is your costs are going to go up. Really, generally, your costs are going to go up. It's not cheaper to run it in the cloud in the long run. You know, it's only if you transform it into, you know, as Gareth said, you want something you can spin up quickly and it's SaaS and it's enabled and it's about focusing on the business value rather than the technical value. You know, that's where you're going to enable some of these things, you know, transformative. But it's always a mix. It's a mix.
It's interesting. It's a good one today. I think it's been really interactive. We should do it a little bit more like this, Simon. I think backwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You get to know the guys and girls if there's any on, and I think it's about sharing. I mean, if all we do in the follow-up sessions is I've got the material and a framework, and we're talking around it and we're sharing, and I think that's goodness. Yeah. You know, absolutely. It's not me sitting lecturing. It's about a guy that's kind of got some ideas and done it a few times, and I think I know what I'm talking about. But you guys have got, you know, Jonathan, you've done it. You know, Gareth, you're involved at the, you know, business strategy exec level. You're doing it. We're all doing it in different ways.
I think Sam, I mean, it's just come to me, and as I say, I've got quite a few good, friendly contacts here that are just like us. They seem pretty normal, and then although they're execs in ivory towers, I think I could get a couple on as well. You know, I don't know how you would like for guests,
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
Get the merrier, Gareth.
Getting a CFO from an online bank to chat about his frigging problems at the moment because he's constantly pissing and moaning at me.
Do we need an X-rated channel just in case?
Could be Friday night beers for CFO.
Yes, I was going to say, is this a, you know, Friday late afternoon beer session?
I think this is it though. It's like we've got to, you know, I think the rule book's out the window now, isn't it? And the time for being precious and holding secrets, and it's over. It's done. It's like co-creation, collaborate. Who does what? Well, I'm not going to do digital transformation. That's not my gig. Who does that? And it's sort of creating more partners. And you're right. I think this is what you're trying to achieve, Sam, isn't it? More networking, more intelligent conversations, not with, say, dickhead salespeople. I've been doing it 20 years, but salespeople, you know,
we've all been there.
Plug the TV. But yeah, I think there's a lot out there. I think this could be a really good little forum. This, guys, I think it's probably one of the. I think Atul was giddy as well. One of the most sort of light touch but deep dives ones that I've been on. So it's brilliant.
Well, we've got about 50 people now in the sort of group that have signed up to these Zoom chats over the last few weeks, and I think that's just going to grow and grow and grow. And it doesn't need to be huge, but there might be that we spin out maybe maybe a Slack group, dare I say it, or something where we can kind of just collaborate online and not just on Zoom or something like that. I don't know.
Good idea.
It's one of those. Just grow it organically and see how we get on. But if you do know anybody that would like to benefit from this, or anybody that wants to talk about stuff, I've got quite a good network on the data side. So Jimmy Hosang, I've met a few times, really, really good lad. We did a video together actually, which we've been unable to edit because there's going to be a load of bleeps in there. There really is, because Jimmy's got a, he's potty mouth,
like me.
but he's like, really, as you can see, you might have got, he's the most energetic man I think I've ever met, and he's really passionate about data science and data. And he'd be great to have on these. But we were going to record all of these sessions. I'm going to try and create maybe something on YouTube, put them out there, get the long form video out there, and then just try and get people involved with it, really. But I love this sort of stuff. It's great.
Yeah, and you know what comes out of it? Telling the truth and swapping war stories is projects and opportunity. We don't need to thinly veil and secret squirrel our why we're here. We all want some opportunity. We want to work on some good projects that are impactful. Business saves a load of money. We all get paid, and put nappies on my kid. I think gone are the days now where it's as I say, everything's all secretive and you can't share that. It's like get a grip. It's just be normal.
I'm with you, mate. I'm with you. Definitely.
Just to come back on you there, if you're secretive and you're thinking that you've got something to hide, you're probably too slow and you're going to die. That's the reality of it.
It's a great point, that, Jonathan.
I mean, from a recruitment point of view, again, it was always a very closed little network. Your business, you didn't want to share any ideas with anybody. I've got a network of about 300-400 other recruiters, and every day we're talking about things that we're doing that's different, that's collaborative, that's innovative. And what used to be a really, really guarded industry has become a lot more open and a lot more friendly. And I totally agree. And now I'm presenting people and candidates out there on LinkedIn that I'm working with. And other people could go and pinch them and speak to them directly. But, I've got a good enough relationship with the candidate that most of the time people go, oh, we had that chat. Well, somebody's contacted me directly. Do you want to just get in touch with them and sort it out? And I'm like, yeah, no problem. And I think if you are open and you're collaborative and you're authentic about it, people aren't going to screw you over. Simple as that.
No, or if they do, word soon gets out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, mate. The channel, even the business community, it's such a small space. And LinkedIn, it's as vast as it is, but it's still a small place, isn't it? But I know I'd love to connect with all you guys, and share. Yeah. I've got some crazy ideas, Sam. It looks like you've got a decent platform, and as I say, if I can share some of my contacts and people that want to piss and moan on this forum, I
think we all know a few of those, Gareth.
Should we maybe get something set up on LinkedIn, like a group or something like that? That we can invite people into, and then we can chat and stuff.
Yep.
And you can have a laugh at my blooper video that Simon mentioned at the beginning of the call. Have you seen it?
No, I don't know if we're connected. We'll have to get connected, buddy. And then with everybody else, I'm not precious. You can.
Well, the story behind it was my CEO said to me last week or the week before. He said, right, we're seeing clients coming back to us now. They're telling us they're hiring. We need to recruit. So get a video out there on LinkedIn and see if we can get some people who are actually working in recruitment to come and work for us. So I was like, yeah, no problem. So do a minute video, and I try as I might, I cocked it up every single time. And in the end, I just said to my CEO, I said, I can't do this. I'm going to put out a video of all my bloopers. And actually it's gone sort of viral. There's like 11,000 views, 300 comments, loads of engagement. And actually we've probably got more off the back of that from a recruitment point of view than we would if I'd have done this polished video to camera. So yeah, so I think that being a bit authentic and genuine kind of works, I guess.
Definitely. Right, boys, I'm going to get some snap before my baby wakes up.
Oh,
Yeah, no
lovely
problem.
speaking to you all, guys. Really appreciate
Cheers,
it.
Jonathan. Cheers, Gareth.
Take care.
Andrew,
Cheers, bye.
Andrew's kind of muted. Andrew, are you? I'm going to chat to Andrew. Is he coming on? There we go. Andrew, how you doing, mate?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks.
Good.
Should we stay on the call? You know Simon.
I do know Simon. Yes. Yeah, I know him well.
Stop recording now. Stop recording now.
Right, I will stop the recording. Bear with me. Stop recording.